What up, everyone? Today's video I'm going to follow up a little bit on the first past the post voting system that I referenced slightly in my video about the Liberals abandoning their electoral reform initiative. Now, just to recap a little bit, I feel it's actually a good thing that the Liberals aren't going to pursue electoral reform for the main reason the options they had put on the table do nothing to address current problems in government. They don't address that there are so many hurdles between us and our elected representatives. They don't address that because of positions in a political party like the chief party whip or other whips, MPs, MLAs, MNAs, MPPs, whatever your province calls them, end up being more loyal to their parties than they are to us, the people they're supposed to represent. None of the proposed reforms would fix that. So on those grounds, I think it's a good thing. But let's look at the voting system we have currently, first past the post. Now, just because I feel that it's good that the Liberals are abandoning this if they're not going to actually fix the system to begin with, doesn't mean that first past the post is something that we should keep and we should keep going with for the next 150 years. Not at all. I think the system at this point, you could make a very good argument that it's antiquated and it no longer is the best option in today's world. It may have served us well for 150 years since Canada became a country in 1867. But as we stand today, there may be better options out there. Now, one of the reasons, and I can understand why this bugs people, is under the first past the post system, since you only go through one round of voting, the system is designed that whoever wins the most votes at the end of the election, whoever wins the most votes forms the government. And because of that, you can end up with a party that wins the majority of seats in their government house, whether it be the House of Commons or provincial legislatures, without getting the majority of the majority of the popular vote. You could get somebody who wins the majority of seats in a government house, but only gets 35, 39% of the overall vote. Now that really is a false majority. But how do you go about fixing that? How do you really go about fixing that? That is the riddle. That is the enigma. Now, my old counter to the argument about, for the sake of argument, they only got 39% of the popular vote. How can they form a majority government? My old argument was always, the opposition got even less than that. So you think they deserve a mandate? I don't overly stick by that anymore. And in a lot of ways, I'm embarrassed to admit that used to be my opinion on this. Because it really doesn't, it avoids the issue. It avoids the fact that our system doesn't really represent what we want it to be. It doesn't represent our voice. For sake of argument, if we send 39%, if enough of us vote 39%, and send 39% of Liberals to government, how should they have a majority government? Speaking reasonably, speaking rationally, how should they be able to form a majority government? It should be a minority government. And that's the same thing when Harper won his majority. He didn't get a majority of the popular vote. He still should have served in a minority government. But because of the system we have, where if you're the first one to win X number of seats in the House of Commons, we're just going to talk federally at this point, you get to serve in a majority regardless of how many people actually came out to vote for you. So I agree. That system does need to be changed or updated so we could either allow the government bodies to more accurately reflect what public opinion actually is. Whereas, if only 39% of Canadians supported the winning party, the party that is victorious, they should only get 39% of the government house. Whatever that would translate into seats. Now, I still think proportional representation, throw that out the window. And that's just, I don't want to get into that again. There are still too many questions I have on that, which result in the extra positions that are open as elected officials. Do the parties get to choose or do the voters get to choose? And if the parties get to choose, that to me means it's immediately off the table. We choose who sits there, not the parties. And here is what is the conundrum. What system would be more accurate? That silence is deafening. We really don't know what would be a better system to fix this idea of you get to form a majority government with only 39% of the vote. That's the problem. There isn't some magic solution to this. The system might be antiquated. And maybe something like ranked voting would allow people to be able to actually vote their conscience and not throw their vote away. Ranked voting is probably a good idea that we should just be doing anyway. Online voting we should already have. Because that's another problem with first past the post. Going back to voting your conscience. How many times have you not been able to vote your conscience because you know the person or the candidate that you would be voting for, that would get your vote if you were voting your conscience, had no chance of actually winning? And in that case, you might as well be throwing away your vote, because some of those smaller parties, it's a pipe dream to get them that they will end up being a force in the House of Commons. So in a lot of ways, you got to make your bed with the devil of essentially the big three parties, the Conservative Party of Canada, the Liberal Party of Canada, the New Democratic Party of Canada. Because those are the three that usually end up with a sizable amount of MPs in the House of Commons. And if you don't vote for any of those three, usually they don't get in. Bloc Québécois and the Green Party are an exception, of course. So ranked voting could help with that. And another thing I think would really help with that, and this isn't election reform, this is just government reform altogether. If this idea of dividing into teams, this side's the government, this side's the opposition, we throw that out the window and both sides are the government. Like our municipal councils, where everybody who actually sits at the table is part of the government. Ooh, radical idea! Then maybe people could actually vote more people could vote their conscience, because whoever they vote for is actually going to be part of the government. Will actually have a say. There's no easy answer for what could replace first past the post. it's just a clear sign that the system is antiquated and we need to replace it. But with what? And there needs to be more than just electoral reform. There needs to be an actual reform in how we're governed. Maybe also, instead of casting one vote or a ranked vote on who you want as your MP, in the system I proposed, maybe we also get to vote for who's Prime Minister, since everybody's going to be part of the government anyway. You vote for your local MP and who you want as your Prime Minister. And you do it in ranked order. That could help. It's not perfect, but I think it's damn better than what we got right now. And, well, here's hoping. Here's hoping something will change, but I won't hold my breath. Anyway, I want to thank you so much for watching the video. Please share it, like it, subscribe. If you agree, disagree, or just want to continue the conversation, leave a comment. Anyway, thank you again for watching. Have yourself a good day.